Okay, today's video we're going to talk about malware. How a malware attack on your website, and because I'm a PPC guy here, a PPC channel, how it can really destroy or screw up a PPC campaign that you have going for you, and how to prevent this more than anything from occurring to you, as I pretty much guarantee, as sure as everything else in life, death, taxes, and you have a successful PPC campaign, you're going to get attacked and hacked by a malware person at some point in time. How you're going to prevent it from whatever happens, instead of letting it wait till it happens to you and say, I don't believe it's going to happen, and be one of those type of people that says, I'll believe it when it happens. This will happen to you. You could take my losing a ton of money having to learn this for myself because nobody told me. I never had this video. And so it won't happen to you. And for that matter, all the information the main information that you can find about malware and preventing malware and recovering from it as well is BS. That's why I came out with this video, even though it's not about PPC strategy, which most of my videos are about. So this is actually how to really, really protect yourself the way that I wish, again, somebody would tell me of. If you're down right now for malware, this will also basically guarantee that you'll get out of it, okay? So if that's you, you also will walk away with the answer that you want on this video to prevent it, to recover and prevent it from happening from you again, because as you may know already, and as I'm going to get to on the video as well, just because you recover from a malware attack doesn't mean you won't get attacked again. The likelihood is you will get attacked again, and I'll explain why and how you're actually going to stop them from attacking, and presumably or mostly the same person who hacked you the first time even. But also could be another person, one hacks you, another one, basically the likelihood you get hacked again by somebody else is higher each time, because you're now a proven juicy target for one. That makes you a likely juicy target for somebody else who's in this game of hacking people, adding malware to your site. Okay, so anyway, long story short, now I got that out of the way, I will explain what this whole thing is about, malware, how it happens, how to prevent it, how to recover from it, do's and don'ts, and so on. So here's how to prevent this happening from you, as I said at the start of the video. Everyone at some point will become a target, okay? What I mean by this is, as you become more successful in business, it's almost like the mafia, if you want to have a comparison to what these people who do malware attacks on sites, they're trying to extort you. That's more so what they call ransomware, I guess, trying to extort you. But once you become, from the standpoint of the more successful you are, the bigger the target you become, like the mafia used to do businesses before websites, maybe still do, I don't know. The more money you have, the more, and they don't know how much you're making, but as you exhibit signs of being more successful, you become a bigger and bigger target to these malware people, okay? So therefore, you got to know, as you're going to get into business, if you plan on being big time, you're going to have to deal with big time problems. This malware thing will happen to you if you're going to be doing any kind, like if you plan on doing 6 figures a year in business even. This is something that you need to know to protect yourself ahead of time. You may not spend quite as much time and effort as somebody who does 7 figures or even 8 figures. Even at the 6-figure range, this is 99% chance this will happen to you sometime, in the next 10 years, we'll just say. And the bigger you are, the quicker and bigger target, and more often it will happen, and the more often you'll come down, and the more you stand to obviously lose, unless you do the stuff I mentioned on the video. So basically, they're looking for juicy targets. The bigger you become, the more of a juicy, appetizing meal you look like you basically are to the people who survive and live off of hacking people's sites and adding the malware to the sites. Now, why do people actually do this in the first place? Just so you know what's the motivation behind the crime. Hackers look for different good targets, i.e. a site that's already doing a lot of business and is successful or looks like it's successful. You don't even have to be profitable. It just looks like you got a lot of traffic to your site, basically. We'll just put it that way. In which they can tell, by the way, they can use a tool like SpyFu and see how much organic traffic it has. They can look for you on social media. They have tools to scan sites that way. There's a few different ways they'll actually, quote unquote, find you. But the two main reasons why they actually do it, one of which I touched on a minute ago, to make money directly by actually literally extorting you through a thing called ransomware. Now that's not malware per se, I just thought I would throw that out. So in terms of why you get hacked in general, it always comes down to these two things. Ransomware, they hack your site down, they put it on there, send me $10,000 in Bitcoin and your site's not coming up. And you try to put it up, they hack it back down. You try to put it up again, they hack it back down. And the general thing is you don't ever negotiate with people that are trying to extort you, because guess what? Then they just extort you again. For most people, they actually pay the ransom, by the way. They usually get left alone. For some reason, I don't know why, they don't just hack them again, because if they're assholes the first time, I don't know why they would do it again. But anyway, if they're not doing it for that, then they're doing the malware attack to get, assuming that they're not doing it for political reasons. Of course, I will leave out that stuff. Or they just have a personal grudge on you, which there would be different reasons to add malware for your site that way. But most of hacking has to do with monetary gain. And so if they hack your site down, what they can do is they can then insert new things to your site, particularly so that you don't even notice. They're good enough at it so they could put it on your site, you don't notice, maybe ever. Maybe short term, and that's also what I'm going to talk about on the video. But what they'll do is they'll backlink to their site, because organic search rankings has a lot to do with backlinks to your website. And so they don't want to work for a backlink because they're hard to get. So I can't blame them if I had no moral standpoint, backlinks are hard to get and I want to do business. I'll just hack this website over here, get a backlink, and then I'll just do it again and again and again. They'll hack a whole bunch of websites. They scan a whole bunch of sites that look like the higher the authority of the so-called site, the more the backlink is worth in terms of credit towards getting a higher search ranking. So that's why I said, as you become more successful, you become a more and more enticing target. And then they'll scan for websites that are A, vulnerable, that they know they can hack, and B, that are worth their time. So their goal would be a website with low security that has a lot of business already, which i.e. is usually the first person who's totally naive and doing business online for the first time. They just started to get successful, and then wham! So they add a backlink to their site, and then Google finds out about the link. Sometimes, by the way, they can hack the sitemap. There's a Japanese attack out there where they can then add extra pages to your site. Sometimes they just change the existing pages on your site as is. And if they changed your sitemap, because what shows up on Google will be in Japanese characters. Seen this, that's actually very common. So to get the higher search ranking, or some people just want to drive traffic to their site. They might put like, there's these drugs, instead of getting flagged by the algorithm here, there's drugs that will get you high at this link, basically. I'm sure you've all seen this, and they just put a link. And even though you would think, like, I sell signs, why would they put this link to sell drugs? Well, the practical matter is there's enough people that do drugs that as long as you get some eyeballs on it, it'll be profitable to some degree, right? Like 10% of the populace do drugs. Therefore, if I get 100 people to look at my link, 10% will be interested, or potentially. And then all I got to do is just get a little bit of traffic, because I can do this 1,000 times to 1,000 other websites. And this is literally what these people do. Therefore, that's why it's such a credible threat to you, particularly as you continue to get bigger. So it's not about if you're going to grow a big company, it's when. And the bigger you get, the more and more of a target you get. And of course, if you're not increasing your security to the point where I should explain that it will keep 99.9% of problems away while you're growing financially, monetarily, well then it's just a matter of time before you get noticed, i.e. found, and hacked. And when you get hacked, like I said, they're very clever. They can get it hacked. You won't even notice it for months. This is very, very common. So you'll be bled a little bit for months. So it won't kill your business all at once, generally, because if they're going to go to backlink or looking for traffic, their goal is to get it changed so that they can bleed off traffic or this backlink juice without you noticing it. Definitely, hopefully. And some people, they do never notice it. And so really what they're looking for is somebody with low security and people that aren't paying attention, basically, so they can keep their link there. And then they do it to 10 sites, and one person's so, I don't want to call it naive, apathetic, that they never find it, and so it's there for years. And so if they hack 1,000 sites, yeah, I'll get 100 people who are so apathetic that they'll just never find it, and I have 100 backlinks to my site. That ranks my site, and now I got a solid business now because of that. So anyway, now you understand kind of the economics behind this whole malware thing, so you understand. It helps you, obviously, I think it helps you protect what you're doing a little bit better, so you understand the great measures that I'm going to mention here of what you should do, actually, why, even though, they cost money, so you got to, that's also, you got to justify it to yourself, why I explain it to you first here. So anyway, what most people do to protect themselves is, first of all, they don't do squat. Because you got to be an IT expert to understand what malware even is, or even the idea has to come into your head, and it's not something that just pops in your head randomly. Generally speaking, you get hacked with malware, and it's, like I said, a lot of times it'll be on this site for a long, long time if they don't have a policy in place for people to audit your website on a regular basis, because it could be on an inner page of your site. And so anyway, eventually it gets found. So people, i.e. then, their plan to prevent this from happening to them with the malware is they wait to get hacked. They're not proactive, they're reactive. They notice it way too late, to the point where it's there for a long time. It's been slowly screwing you over for a long time, and then they'll find out a lot of times, not when they actually have somebody in their company or a customer finding it on their site, which obviously is the other way that people find it. They get a notice from Google Ads, if you're running a Google ad campaign, that your ads disapproved for malicious software, and then you'll know it's on there that way. I, by the way, have a video about taking care of a malicious software just ad disapproval, and if you search on my channel, you'll be able to find that if that's your issue. That'll tell you step by step how to deal with it as well. I made this video because there's more updated information that I have to more so help you protect yourself long term in a more concrete, permanent solution for you, given that you may fix it, but if you keep getting bigger, more and more people are trying to take away what you got, and therefore you need. I made this for people that want that are going to be, you're trying to be very ambitious with your company, basically. They'll get a disapproval at, or Google Search Console, which is the free tool Google gives you for your organic rankings to look at what Google needs to rank your website. They'll get a message in there that their site's been malware, or, like I said, the sitemap has been updated, and therefore they should check into that. And that's when they find out, okay? So when they have that happen to them, they scan their site with like a malware scanner or whatever, because maybe I should have put an extra step in here. They go to an IT person internally, or they go hire one, and they find out, what the hell, how do I get rid of this? And then that person suggests that they scan, either they do it themselves or that person will scan the site internally, their IT person or whatever, IT department will scan the site, find the pages that are so-called affected by malware, which isn't a perfect system because there is no database about how to cross-reference and see what is malware versus not. If they're clever, and which a lot of times they are, to make the code look non-malicious, and unlike other malware that's out there, the corresponding libraries, which these malware scanners would check to see if what you have on your site is malware, wouldn't be able to flag it, if you will. It's kind of like an antivirus software that's not updated, if you want to think about it that way. And then, so anyway, they notice it's there, And the reason why they'll have to do it that way, by the way, is because they haven't caught the malware for such a long time. The most latest backup of their website, you can't back up from there because they'll only do the backup, let's say, once a month. Or they did a backup, a lot of times they don't do a backup for a year. And so you could restore from a year ago, but any of the changes you made since a year would all be overwritten, so that's not an option for them. So they're stuck with scanning the site and then trying to manually remove this code, this malware code that's placed on the site. And again, it's difficult because you don't know maybe they added it to one page, maybe they added it to a lot of pages. The bigger the site, the more of it like finding a needle in a haystack it is. And they'll go and try to use these scanners to find out what pages to clean up, and then they'll clean it up, and then they'll try to resubmit their page to Google afterwards, either this Google Search Console or get in touch with Google Ads support and say, I want a reconsideration to get the ads approved, and your campaign's going again. And of course, by the way, as you're going through all this, of first having to go to the IT person, and then them telling you, do you have a backup? And then looking to find your backup, and you don't have a backup, and then having to use the scanner, and then this takes 2 weeks. And so if you were counting on that Google Ads campaign to work, you basically have all this overhead that could put you out of business. This is what I want you to think about this, the whole kind of, you got to think about this overall. And I try to help you look at it from all angles because you may not think it's a big deal, but when you think about, can you take a 2-week hit in your ads not bringing in any sales, and I mean zero, whether you survive it or not. And if, a more bigger threat, which I'm not a SEO guy, I understand SEO because I used to be a director at an SEO firm before I started Guarantee PPC 7 years ago. And I also just know by looking at other client stuff, clients come to me, I advise them on other stuff just as a side because I don't look through a straw when I'm trying to optimize the PPC. If some sales are down, I look at other traffic sources and try to tell the client, hey, I'd look over here, not to place blame, but you want a PPC person who wants to make as little changes as possible because you aren't just to look busy. You want to make a change when you know you have to, so you're not screwing everything up, adding volatility to the account that doesn't need to be there, and then obviously you change it again, adds even more volatility. Got to know when you make a change that you're not guessing. That's what a good person will do for you. So basically, so all this is going on. The bigger thing is with the SEO, to get back on track here. If Google thinks that your site's malicious, all your SEO or organic rankings go almost to zero in a lot of cases. I'd count on it going closer to zero than not. And so you're losing all your organic sales too. So it could be your Google Ads or your Google Ads and your organic, or it could just be your organic. But the bigger thing with the organic is, if you let it go too long, all your organic rankings will not come back. The kind of tipping point I have found is about 3 weeks. If you let your site be hacked for more than 3 weeks without doing something about it, at least to the degree once Google's noticed it, after Google's given you the warning, and you take more than 3 weeks to react with all the stuff that I talk about, which normally you have to go through if you're not prepared, you get it fixed finally, go for the resubmission, you might only have half the organic traffic you had before, and if you think about the value of that, you just lost, $5 million in future sales from all that traffic that's now gone over the next, 5 years that you spent years building up beforehand. So therefore, anything you spend here to ensure your site from this happening, it's literally a drop in the bucket compared to what you can lose. So again, I'm telling you this not to scare you, but to help you put it into perspective. This isn't something to mess around with. And this is not something that may not happen, like I might get audited by the IRS. This is like not filing your taxes at all and the likelihood that you're just never going to get noticed by Google while making millions of dollars a year in sales. That's more of a credible comparison of the type of credible threat that you're dealing with here. With malware, it's specifically, I I want to be very clear about the likelihood this will happen to you if you're going to be even a reasonably successful company there, or reasonable sized company. So you do all this, but then basically, so you'll have 2 or 3 weeks realistically, because everybody's got organic traffic to protect too, to get things back to where they were with no traces of malware on the site. But because the malware scanners, like I said before, aren't perfect, there's no library of definitions of all what malware looks like, and you have a lot of times many pages on a site. You have hundreds of pages, you put it through that scanner. You can't check manually, which you should, by the way, given how serious of an issue this is, and should immediately be hopping on it. All resources on it. They will remove it. They'll go for a reconsideration request. It takes 2 days to get your ads reconsidered. It takes about a day or on the SEO side through Google Search Console. And then it'll say, no, there's still more on there. And so then you got to go back to square one. Go back to the scanner. And then it's like you're going to be in a major panic situation, given now what I'm telling you. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can there's a clear way that you can protect yourself here. You don't ever basically have a chance of this problem happening. Once you've set it up, it's there, okay? It's just like buying insurance is a good analogy for this. So that's what typically most people do. Here's what you're going to do, given you're a smart, intelligent person who really understands business and wants to be in the top 10% that does things the right way in your market, whatever. The way that I recommend you do it, there's very simple plan here. Oh, I forgot to, before I go on here, one more thing I wanted to add to this. So they'll resubmit. Maybe the Google will say it's all gone. Maybe it's all not in terms of the malware being on the site. Now, okay, you think you're all in the clear, right? Nope. Your site gets hacked again with malware again. And that's about enough to where you really want to just pull the hair out of your head. Because you're saying, oh my gosh, it took forever to just deal with this in the first place. I was so relieved it was over. And 2 days later, I got hacked with malware again, which I've literally seen it happen like that. And more than once, where you're hacked 2 days later again, particularly by the same person. Why? Because that person's got your number. I can tell you a little bit further, like what people will do is they'll look for WordPress websites with such and such plugin, because they know that's the security vulnerability on the site. And so they'll scan millions of websites, first to see if they're WordPress, second to see if they have a certain plugin that's popular that that there's a security flaw in, which you know how to then use to get around and get full access to the site. They'll scan, find those, and then they'll hack them all, add their links. Some people will change or delete the links, but they won't harden their security, and then they'll just try to go in and rehack it again. Why the heck not would you do that? I would be doing it if this were me, and they do. So then, now you're really like, oh crap, what do I do? Because you know how hard it was to get rid of it. Now they rehacked it, and it's there again. And more importantly, if I remove it and they rehack it again, not only have I wasted my time and money doing this again, because obviously it's free fixing it, but what do I do? Because if it keeps getting rehacked, Google's eventually going to lose patience with me. What do I do? So the what do you do is what I'm about to share with you here. This is the way that I recommend you setting up your anti-malware protection on your site. So your campaigns are always going to be well insured, as is your organic rankings. That usually right along with, if you make a PPC campaign pay for itself and you can slowly scale the ad spend, the organic usually rides proportionally right along with it, especially once you hit 10 grand a month in PPC ad spend on Google. Just as a side tip. First thing you do though, do 30 days auto backup. So you do a backup every single day, and you have to do a backup of your what they call web files and your database. A lot of people make this mistake starting out. They back up their web files, but their database isn't backed up, and a lot of times your database will be corrupted when your site's hacked. So you got to be able to restore both of them to know for sure any kind of hack you have, including the malware hack, that you'll be able to restore it exactly how the site was before the hack occurred. And because you don't know when the hack occurred and it's hard to notice right away, you need to have a daily backup going back at least 30 days, because generally speaking, you can find a hack, not guaranteed, but generally speaking, you'll see it within the last 30 days. So you have a hard restore point going back daily, going back 30 days. So you know, if you could what you can do is you can look at the server logs if you need to and see that the hack happened 7 days ago and then restore from day 8. That prevents most of what you've changed on the site in the last month to be preserved, including any orders that would be deleted if you had a really bad corrupted site. So, and what I do is I actually use a virtual private server because I have a video about this, how it loads so much faster. Therefore, it will get higher sales, higher conversion rates, pay for itself, higher quality scores on your Google Ads account. I use Liquid Web, and yes, it's $100 a month or roughly thereof. Most people that will spend $10 a month for hosting will say I'm crazy, but they're crazy because your site's going to load a second or two faster, and that's not going to cost you $90 a month in sales. It's going to cost you, $9,000 a month in sales. So, respectively, even if you're a small company, it generally is going to pay for itself unless you just literally have no sales coming in, basically. So anyway, I'll take the VPS server and I'll do a whole backup of the entire server image so that there's a one-click restore. And when I notice I'm hacked, the amount of time to get back to where I was is as quick as possible. I think like some of these other, if you're doing shared hosting, which again, I don't recommend. I recommend doing a solid state hard drive, virtual private server, even if it seems overkill. It loads the fastest, so I can have a server image that when you have those restore points, you can click 8 days ago, restore, and 5 minutes later, it's exactly the way that it was before, and that's the only thing you have to do, to the point where you don't need anybody else to help you out to get it back up. You yourself could restore it. There's other services though that provide like a one-click restore type thing, and but I don't know. Obviously all of them do the website restore plus the database, which if you use that, that's what you need to have, by the way. So anyway, that covers you so that you can get back to where you were within 5 minutes if you notice a hack happened within the last month, okay? Respectively, that's not the only thing that you need to do here, okay? Because obviously, like I said earlier in the video, you can have a hack that happened 3 months ago and now you're screwed if that's all you did. You could go back and do a daily restore point for a year if you wanted to. The only problem with that, by the way, is the amount of hard drive space you're going to need is a lot of times too much, unless you, of course, only have a really tiny, like 5-page website, to where it just might not be economically feasible for you to do that. But so with all that said, the second thing is, and here's the key thing that a lot of people don't know about. Use a service like Malcare, M-A-L-C-A-R-E, for WordPress. The one I use, which is the one I use for guaranteeppc.com and the website there, with at least a 6-hour check frequency. So what this software, and if there is, you have a different site like Drupal or whatever for content management system / CMS, what CMS stands for. I'm going to find a malware site backup, so what do they call it? Like a software, a malware plugin. Just look for, I can't think of the actual technical term of how they describe this. You're going to look for services like Malcare, one that's good for your CMS. And therefore, if you get one that's specialized for your CMS, it's likely to work the best, is all I'm saying. Malcare is the best one I found for WordPress, therefore we use it. What this actually does is it backs up your site every 6 hours, and it checks to see if the backup that they did the last 6 hours is the same as the previous 6 hours, and if there's anything changed, they look at the changes to the files that they have on all their other customers, which is thousands and thousands of customers. In terms of when they get hacked and they have malware, it studies it makes a definition file for all the malware hacks. And like I said, that's not perfect, but when you have one specialized just for your CMS, and that leads the market, there should be more, but you want it because it leads the market, it has the most data to look at. that should pretty well know about everything that could be in terms of malware that could happen, because these people are hacking lots and lots of sites. So in other words, the likelihood that you're the first one that they hack is not likely, which is to say. So what it does is and then if it notices the site is different, it'll send you an email. It'll say, your site's different from 6 hours ago. We think it's malware. Do you want to restore? You click a button, it restores it. It doesn't do it automatically, but at least then you can get an alert on your phone at any time of the day or night, and you can get right back to where it was. And basically, if somebody's hacked you, they'll hack it, you go back up, and then they hack it again, it goes back up. The system actually will learn, by the way, too. If the same person keeps coming in, it'll just straight up, the way that the software works, prevent it in a lot of cases if you're using a good software. But more importantly, they'll just stop trying because they know they got these 100 sites. And all they're trying to do is do a cost-benefit analysis. If they hack your site and then you fix it, and then they hack it again and you fix it, they're just going to take your site off the list. And so you're just no longer a target at that point. And so if you have an e-commerce site, you don't want to lose your orders. I recommend you can upgrade through Malcare at least. If you're using like a WooCommerce, which is an e-commerce plugin for WordPress, it'll check once an hour to see if anything is different and there's likely any malware added to the site, so you can immediately clean it up. I would do that. You technically could do that if you have, the bigger the site, the more frequent restore points I would make there, and the more frequent, therefore, it checks. It does a restore and it checks. So do you want it to check your site once an hour, once every 3 hours, once every 6 hours, once a day? And the more often it checks and does a backup like that, which again happens at the same time, the more expensive, amount of money you pay. But even if you do a 6-hour check every 6 hours, backup every 6 hours, and check every 6 hours, you're still only talking about like $100 a year. So it's basically nothing. If you do an hourly check, it's more like $300 or $400 a year or something like that. Don't quote me on those prices, and obviously it could change by the time you see this video, but that is in and itself going to prevent you from the people that can hack it to have your site at the very least stay hacked down or with the malware on it very long, because it's going to know when the malware is on there and you're going to be able to immediately fix it. And if the same person keeps coming back, it'll basically, because it has other security features on there, it'll just block that attempt from ever coming in once it notices the same attempt. And in general, make sure that at the very least, the most time that your site is ever going to have the malware on it will be 6 hours before you'll be able to restore it. Therefore, you're not going to be ever, Google in that 6-hour time is not even going to notice it. Therefore, you're protected. Okay? So, and by the way, there's one other thing I didn't mention here. For WordPress, there's some pretty good plugins. All the default URLs, like, the login URL, there's a plugin, I can't remember the name of it, that we use on our site, but it'll change the URL. So when these hackers are looking for vulnerabilities, it'll be looking for the login, and if they don't know the URL, they can't try to brute force attack your login. You could change the default URL for WordPress, which, obviously, if they know a vulnerability on the login page, they can check for the login page, and if they can't find your login page, they just can't hack it, they skip over it. You're no longer a target. But you could change the default location on all your pages, on your entire site. And there's similar stuff for different platforms, CMSs that you use, but I would recommend layering that on top. So therefore, basically, they're not going to find anything that's a vulnerability. From the plugin side, definitely keep the plugins updated, and try to not use as any more plugins than you need to, and don't use any sketchy plugins, from really small companies that you think don't update them regularly, because the longer it goes without an update, the more kind of risk you're taking with it. But if you do all that stuff, 99% of the time, you're not going to have a problem, okay? And then you do all the stuff ahead of time. Again, at the most, your site's going to have malware on it for 6 hours, not potentially 6 months, and it's going to take no effort other than to click yes, clean it up, and you're done. If you're wondering why I say do the backup and use this service itself, by the way, too, malware, anti-malware software is what you probably could search to find. I think that's what that category of software is called. That's like Malcare that I use on our WordPress site that specializes for WordPress to do that same thing there. Is because you don't want to rely on, one is the worst number in business. You never want to rely on just one thing. And just like you don't want to rely just on Google traffic or Amazon, you need more than one so that it can't take you down when one thing fails. One thing will always fail. It's just a matter of when. If these software screw up, you still want the backup, okay? Just as a side kind of benefit. It's just the main reason why I mentioned that. And respectively, they'll message you when you have the malware on it. 99% of the time they'll catch it and you'll just be able to restore it. And that's that. In case that it failed at any point, they didn't have the backup, whatever, you still got a hard backup on your site, and in a way that you can quickly restore from, but also in a way that you know for sure you've already built a plan ahead of time, which you will for sure have everything you need to restore and get the malware off your site as soon as you notice it as well. Well, if you liked the video, I have a ton of other videos on this channel about other PPC money-making strategies. If you want to make a lot of money with PPC, you should check those out. I have a blog at guaranteeppc.com/blog with step-by-step instructions on how to build PPC campaigns that are essentially guaranteed to work and which we use for our clients here. If you'd like to see something along those lines, I have that there as well in case you're interested. If you have any questions or comments or anything that you think I should have covered here about malware, leave a comment down below. I'll get back to I do get back to every single person who leaves me a comment within a day or two of leaving it here on my channel. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed. Hope you take this really to heart here so you don't end up on the, in a panic situation when malware comes knocking at your door and you've got already 2 steps ahead of it.